before Einstein discovered the theory of relativity, the mainstream science was the universe was a clockwork, mechanical universe. If you knew all the initial conditions, you could apply the equations and you could predict the future. It was therefore a deterministic reality. Einstein proved that this is not quite correct. With his theory of relativity, he presented us with what is known as a block universe, where the past still exists and the future already exists. However, if we look into detail, this is not quite correct. The block universe does not necessarily imply the pre-existence of the future, because theory of relativity states that all inertial frames of reference are equally valid. That means all frames of reference that are stationary relative to each other are equally valid. So let's take an example. The example of the relativistic rocket. An astronaut is placed inside a rocket, takes off from Earth at 9% the speed of light for a couple of days. From the frame of reference of the astronaut, in a couple of days, he returns to the Earth, and the Earth he finds is an Earth that is 50 years into the future. However, from the frame of reference of the inhabitants of the Earth, it is instead the astronaut who has just arrived from the past. For the inhabitants of the Earth, it's the astronaut who has just returned from the past. And the astronaut is incorrect to say that he has arrived into the future of the Earth. So we find a total contradiction between these two frames of reference. The frame of reference of the astronaut, the frame of reference of the inhabitants of Earth. So who is correct? Well, we apply the law of relativity. All inertial frames of reference are equally valid. And we find that because the Earth has been accelerating much, much less than the astronaut, therefore the Earth has been more inertial than the astronaut. Therefore, the frame of reference of the Earth has to have more validity over the frame of reference of the astronaut. Therefore, it is incorrect to say that the astronaut traveled to the future. Instead, it is only correct to say that the astronaut returned from the past. Therefore, the theory of relativity does not necessarily prove that the future already exists. However, quantum mechanics complements the theory of relativity, demonstrates that actually not only the future already exists, but there is an infinite array of possible alternative futures that pre-exist and have always existed. In other words, at the very moment of creation, whether that was the Big Bang or before, all possible histories came into existence and continue to exist simultaneously in parallel universes. In fact, the definition of a parallel universe is an alternative history, an infinite possible number of permutations of historical events. Therefore, we know that there is an infinite possible number of parallel universes. Quantum mechanics has proven that this is correct with consistent results, and this complements the theory of relativity, because theory of relativity states that all frames of reference that are inertial are equally valid. Since light is the most inertial of all possible reference, since the speed of light is a constant, therefore the speed of light has zero acceleration, and it is therefore light the most valid of all possible frames of reference. That means that if we have to compare the opinion of any frame of reference that suffers any sort of acceleration with the opinion of that which is observed from within the light, it is always the opinion or that which is observed or measured from the frame of reference of light that has to be true and has to have prevalence over any other accelerated observation. To sum up, as humans or any other object or being of the multiverse has very little free will. This is because all possible histories already pre-exist and are running simultaneously. That means that every possible event in the history of any individual in any reality is already pre-existing. Everything that happens already existed. Any event that may happen to you already pre-exists. But we still have some free will left. The only possible free will that is left is to awaken to the realization that reality is not a physical external world or multiverse, but is instead a single mind. The single mind is also called oneness, and is also called infinity. It's also called by Christianity the Father. That's what Jesus used to call the Father. Father is infinity, is oneness, is the higher self, and it's only one entity, one single fabric, one single spirit, one single being. Like a dream is a single fabric, like a single bubble that suddenly bursts upon awakening, like the different characters in a night dream and the different distances that we observe in the night dreams turn out to be illusory upon awakening in the morning. When the bubble of oneness of the dream bursts, when we wake up, we realize that it was everything an illusion, that the rate of time in the dream was illusory because it didn't even match the rate of speed of time of the waking state. And the separation, the distances, were also illusory. And the characters, and so on. Likewise, our waking reality is also mind, just like the dream reality. This is the awakening that is needed for us to regain a little portion of free will, because upon this realization, we become able to control the unconscious mind, that is the autopilot that controls our daily lives, and usually for the worst. It's an autopilot that negates every possible bit of free will, extracts and exacts it away from us, so that even though we have a strong personal illusion of free will, we can say, oh, I can move this finger up and down, and it's me who is doing it. This was already within the history of this parallel universe that we are currently inhabiting. On top of that is the unconscious mind that is deciding and is speaking. It's the unconscious mind that takes our lips most of the time, and takes our hands, and takes our thinking process. So awakening is the realization that it is the unconscious mind that is the autopilot that has taken over our lives, that is extracting every little drop of free will that is left. We need to recover it. When we recover the free will, doesn't mean that we can be absolutely free to do whatever we want. That's not possible, because all possible histories already pre-exist. They were creating already. But the only possible free will that is left for us, the only possible freedom that is left for us upon awakening, is actually to be able to navigate consciously, to evict the unconscious mind, to evict the devil, so that we can freely navigate across different parallel universes that already pre-exist, in order to find those where we can feel more at peace and more in joy, which is ultimately what the universe wants for us, because we are one with the universe. So the universe doesn't want to pinch us, and the universe doesn't want us to be unhappy. The universe is on our side. The universe wants us to be joyful. The universe wants us to be able to awaken and navigate our ways towards those parts of the multiverse where we can be most happy, which are already pre-existing, but our conscious mind is not there. We need to become conscious that we have the power to navigate our way across parallel universes to find our happiness and our liberation. So our free will never be complete, because all universes, all possible histories already pre-exist. But there is some hope left, some mercy left for us, and that is the mercy of awakening. And upon awakening, the ability to evict the unconscious mind and regain our conscious mind to navigate our way into happiness in a parallel universe that we deserve. So the answer to whether we have free will or we don't have free will is yes and no. We do have free will if we awaken, but it's a very limited free will, because it will always be within the universes that already pre-exist. So this is what science has discovered. Now I would like to turn to the Bible to see what the Bible says. The Bible actually confirms what science has recently discovered. The Bible confirms that all possible histories already pre-exist. It also confirms that there is still some free will left, but it's only upon the choice of the Father. Romans 11:6 says, his choice, referring to the Father means infinity, means oneness, means the higher self, means the multiverse, basically. So Romans 11:6, his choice is based on his grace, not on what they have done. Now this is interesting, because it's saying that infinity gives us the opportunity to have some free will, but this free will is not based upon any good works that we may do, or any charity that we may do, but it's only based on the grace that infinity may give us, on the mercy that infinity may give us. In other words, the process of awakening into the realization that everything, even the waking state, is also mind, into the realization that we can become conscious and able to navigate our way into pre-existing parallel universes that are joyful and full of glory and happiness. This process of awakening is not a process of awakening that we can bring into ourselves by our own works, but is only received by mercy, by grace of infinity. If infinity wants us to awaken, we will awaken. If infinity has already decided before the universe or the multiverse started that we shall never awaken individually, then that person will never awaken, even if he's a good person that has done works of charity for all his or her life. It is not the choice of the person to awaken, it's the choice of infinity, it's the choice of the Father. And this is so because otherwise the rich people could do acts of charity, could afford to share their wealth and do bigger acts of charity than the poor ones. Therefore, they would be able to purchase themselves the process of awakening and the process of accessing the heavens. The heaven is another word for the navigation into parallel universes where there is joy and only good events happen. Those universes do exist because every possible history has to exist and already exists. Therefore, it is correct to say that many universes exist where there is heaven, and many universes exist where there is hell, and many universes exist that are a mixture of both of them, kind of purgatories, like this earth where we are living at the moment. So you may ask, why do we need a multiverse that contains evil? Why not just containing good? Why not creating a reality that is only joyful, that is only heavenly? It's a fair question, but it's also very easily dismissed. Because infinity, by definition, it needs to contain every possible event, whether it's good or bad. In fact, it needs to contain good and evil, and every other possible duality. It must be contained by infinity. Otherwise, it would not be infinity. Otherwise, it would not be the Father. Otherwise, it would not be a multiverse. Otherwise, it would not be the higher self. It would not be oneness. It would be brokenness. It would not be that which is finite. It cannot be. Actually, the Bible confirms the discoveries of relativity and quantum mechanics with regards to predetermination and all the discoveries that I have just explained to you. For instance, when Jesus said, "It's not my will, it's your will," referring to God or to infinity, when Jesus is speaking to infinity, and he says, "It's not my will, it's your will. I submit myself to your will." In this case, it was about going to the cross, to be crucified. It was not Jesus' will. He didn't want to go to the cross. In fact, he didn't even want to come to the earth. He says that in several occasions. he was ordered to come to the earth. He was ordered to be born on the earth. And he was ordered to do what he had to do. Not my will, your will. It is not our will. If we awaken, it's not because it was our will. If we have faith, it's not because it was our will. It's because it was the will of infinity, because every possible event was already created before the beginning of time. So, for instance, the fact that you are listening to this recording, the fact that you are interested in learning the truth, is not because it is your will, although you may think it is, because there is a very strong illusion of free will. It is not your will that you are listening to this tape. And I know you can press that button and stop it. But even if you stop it, it's not being your will to stop it. The reason you are listening to this tape, the reason you want to learn the truth, is because it's God's will. And I am recording this, and I'm doing an effort to express the truth. It's not because it's my will, it's because it's the will of infinity. We have to bear that in mind. The reason somebody commits a crime, the reason somebody kills, is not because it was their will. That was already preordained before the beginning of time. The reason we eat animals, the reason we mistreat animals and we murder them in the most cowardly of ways, and then we consume their flesh, is not because it's our will. That was preordained by infinity as a possible history before the beginning of time. But there are many other alternative histories where these evil events never happened and will never happen. And there are other realities, real living hells, that are happening right now at this moment in another corners of the multiverse, where horrible events happen constantly. So yes, definitely, we see a confirmation between the Bible and most cutting-edge, sophisticated science. Let's go to John 14:10. I am in the Father, and the Father is in me. And it is Him living in me who is doing the work. Okay, so this is Jesus talking about his relationship with infinity, and he says that he is inside infinity, and infinity is inside him, and it's infinity living inside him who is doing the miracles. So this is another example of oneness, of how everything is one single fabric, like in a dream. And I'm not saying that the waking experience is a dream, but I'm saying it's like a dream in the sense that it's a single fabric or a single bubble where everything that seems separation and that seems different individuals and that seems to have a rate of speed of time is all illusory, and that bubble can be pinched in an instant and disappears, like when we wake up from the night dreams. So one day this waking reality will disappear for each of us personally upon the destruction of the body, which is only mind-based. It will be the beginning of a new history within the mind. John 5:14, the Son can only do what he sees his Father doing, because whatever the Father does, the Son also does. Again, the idea of oneness, of infinity being a single individual. John 12:49, I did not speak on my own. The Father who sent me commanded me to say what I say. Again, the idea of oneness, this is Jesus once more insisting that everything is one, that infinity is a single entity, and insisting that not even him, as Jesus, had free will. He was insisting once more that everything he said, everything he did was already commended or preordained by infinity. John 14:24, my word belongs to the Father. Again, Jesus confirming unity and predetermination. John 7:16, my teaching belongs to the Father who sent me. John 12:44, whoever believes in me believes in him who sent me. John 14:20, on that day you will realize that I am in the Father and you are in me and I am in you. Beautiful unity of infinity into one single unity individual mind that is predetermined in all possible events. John 4:12, no one has ever seen God. Timothy 6:15, no one can ever see God. Why? Because God is not an external physical reality, is not a guy in the sky. God is infinity itself, is all of us together, is the mind that is imagining every possible reality, whether waking or dreaming or imaginatory. Isaiah 45:9, does the clay complain to the potter that he has no skill? In other words, we must not complain to infinity if the events that we have to undergo are negative events, because we as humans, as lower selves, are the clay, but we as part of infinity are higher selves. Therefore, we contributed as part of one, as part of the single mind, to all possible events that already pre-exist, all possible histories. Isaiah 41:4, who has determined the course of history? I, the Lord. So this is infinity speaking. I, infinity has already determined every possible course of history, every possible permutation of events, any butterfly effect that can be an initial condition to unchain a positive or negative chain of events, every possible chain of events, everything has already been predetermined by infinity before the beginning of time. Isaiah 22:11, God who planned all this long ago and who caused it to happen. Lamentations 3:37, good and evil alike take place at his command. Again, we see that God and the devil, they are both part of infinity. They are not two different external entities that fight with each other, like in the naive view of some Christians. God and the devil, they are both part of infinity. They both need each other, because you cannot have infinity where infinity contains only good, or where infinity contains only evil, or where infinity contains only a mix of both. Infinity needs to contain everything possible, whether good, bad, or a mix. Everything has to be contained. Every possible permutation has to exist, and they do exist, as quantum mechanics has proven, in alternative histories, parallel universes that are happening right now simultaneously. This is from the frame of reference of light, of course. I'm not talking from our frame of reference. From our frame of reference as lower selves, we only experience a single history at a time. We don't observe parallel universes, but remember that it's the frame of reference of light that has zero acceleration, which is 100% inertial. That is the only 100% valid frame of reference when in contradiction with any other accelerating frame of reference. We know that from relativity. Anyway, Daniel 5:23, God determines whether you live or die, and everything you do. And Romans 11:6, his choice is based on grace, not on what they have done. It's not for us to force ourselves into having faith or into awakening if this is not in our future. If this is not a grace that we have received from infinity, it will never happen. However, the fact that we are seekers of truth is evidence in itself that we are contained in the grace and in the mercy of infinity, so that we will awaken. We are in the process, we are in the right path of awakening. That's why Jesus said, I am the light, I am the path towards awakening, and I am the truth. Jesus used to say. Of course, the truth and the light are synonyms. We know that from relativity. And the path, well, there is only one path. The path to salvation is the path that infinity has granted grace, hopefully, to us. And that is the reason we are listening to this tape. And that's the reason why I'm recording this tape, because infinity has had the will before the beginning of time that this should happen. Everything that happens is already preordained. Every word that departs from my lips is not me talking, is not Oscar speaking. It's the spirit that's taking my lips. It's the preordained history. When the murderer shoots someone, it's not him doing it. It was preordained by infinity. It had to happen. Otherwise, it wouldn't be infinite. Therefore, just to sum up, yes, we do not have free will unless God give us the grace. Infinity has given us the mercy that we shall awaken, that we shall remain in the path towards the truth, the path towards the light, the path towards heaven-like universes. And we shall be able to evict the devil within ourselves, the unconscious mind, so that we regain control once more, and we are able to navigate our way away from this purgatory universe that we currently inhabit, and we shall be able to find our way towards parallel universes of a higher quality, of a higher likelihood of existence, of a higher level of goodness.